Austin, pay your auntie.
Really?
Yes.
Well, pay her what? Pay her why?
Because if you want to play this game, you have to pay to get access to even begin.
Now, here's something that I find very interesting, right? When people hear pay to play, people might think of, what some guys are doing out there nowadays is like tricking, If you want to get a girl and you don't know how to get a girl and you have some money or you have some funds, even if you don't have some funds, some guys just pull the shit out their ass. They just say, hey, look, here's some money, like me. So they think that they have to pay to play or pay to get access to women. And that's what they probably, or that's what some viewership may think when they hear pay to play. Mm-hmm. But no, we're not talking about tricking. We're not talking about simping. We're not talking about any of that stuff. We're talking about, yes, quite the opposite. If you want to grow yourself and grow whatever entity that you have set up that you're trying to expand, you're going to have to put money into it. Or not only put money into it, put time into it. Put your mental bandwidth into it. So you're going to have to pay, and you're going to have to kind of divvy up all these things and allocate it into whatever it is that you're trying to focus on, as opposed to all that excess stuff that you would have otherwise. Okay. So instead of attributing your time and effort to trying to pick up all these girls and whatnot, you're saying, no, business. Instead of taking your money and saying, hey, I'm going to go buy these Jordans. No, business. Instead of saying, hey, look, I'm going to, use my critical thinking on trying to play Madden and trying to scheme up, how to play defense on Madden and think about this and how to make my defense better. No, take that mental bandwidth that you were using on Madden and apply it to your business. So you're going to have to pay to play in order to get into this business and succeed in this business. And it's kind of like a casino.
Oh.
So you walk into a casino and you see all these games. You see all these things that people are doing, right? And it looks cool. And you know that you can win a lot of money. Man, they have access to hundreds of millions of dollars that you could potentially win if you know how to play, right? But there's one stipulation when you go in the casino. Not one game is going to be for free. You're going to have to take money out of your pocket or from somebody's pocket that you're with and say, hey, look, put my $20 on red. Put my $100 on black. Put my $100 on this. Put my $1,000 on this. You have to pay to play. And then if you think that you can win some type of money, you want to win some type of large amount of money, you want to win $100,000 or whatever, it's a $100,000 bet, whatever. You're going to have to put your own money up in order to even have the opportunity to potentially win that money. But as you all know, there is a good side and a bad side when you do this, or not so bad side, but just not the wanted outcome when you do this. You can pay to play and you can either win or you could either lose. So that's the thing about being able to pay to play, especially in this casino example and in life in general. You're going to have to pay to play. However, you paying to play may not always result in positive outcomes, which is something that, I feel like a lot of people are scared, to do. But also you have to realize, yes, you can lose and you can win in damn near anything in life. But in order to win, you have to pay. Sorry.
And the interesting thing about that analogy is exclusive casinos require an entry cost,
right,
or membership costs. So not only do you have to pay to play, but you have to pay to gain access to even the possibility of playing.
That's very true. And it's like having the access to certain country clubs or certain networks of entrepreneurs and businessmen and women. You have to pay, you have to have a membership to where you're paying either monthly or yearly to even have access to that. Why? Because their network and the people that attend this, they know are so valuable that, hey, we're not going to let you just have this access to this network for free. We have to make sure that you're not a bullshit as well. So you're going to have to pay. So that was actually a very, very good example. And we know we've been in certain situations where we had access to something that we didn't necessarily pay for, somebody else paid for. And just being in that area gave us access to a large amount of things that we wouldn't have access otherwise. And you have to pay a large amount to get into that. So a very large amount. Talking about how much was this?
Over $120,000 a year subscription. Now, I actually want to allude to that a little bit, that specific instance that you are referring to, which said individual will be one of our first guests when we actually begin our interview process in the podcast.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And one of the things that we spoke with him in particular about was there's a maintenance cost. And this is a perfect scenario where we can put this in, because specifically when we were talking to him, we were talking about gaining access to a network, but maintaining access to the network.
Right.
And the country club is a perfect example. Say you're paying $100,000 a year for a subscription at a country club. That is a very high ticket price. Depending on where you are, the network might be extremely extensive.
Right.
Just to keep access to that network is costing you what less than 10% of the American population makes. And you're putting that just for networking. That's a high price. That's a high cost. And it also doesn't have a direct return.
Right.
Because you still have to pay the price of those connections to get a higher value. You still have to gamble. You still have to put in the ante, and you still have to play the game.
So that's actually great that you said that, because this leads me to something that you have a lot of expertise in. So when we're talking about pay to play, yes, we say if you want to get your product out there, right? You have a product and you want to spread that product to as many people as possible. You live in, we always say Bumblefuck, Nebraska. You live in Bumblefuck, right? Nebraska, right?
I thought it was Idaho.
Okay, Idaho, Nebraska. Idaho. They're right next to each other. You know, tomato, and potato. That's what they grow, actually. So we're talking about Idaho, Nebraska, all that stuff. You're out there, and you don't have a very large network, but you have, certain things like social media and whatnot. But there's only so much that you can do with that until you really know the ins and outs, how to promote your things. However, there's another avenue that you could take to grow your product, right? You can say, hey, look, I'm going to put some money towards a marketing campaign and use different avenues to push my product via a marketing campaign. So we're talking about pay to play. If you didn't have, that marketing campaign and try to grow your product in a more kind of organic way, I guess, would you say that you would see the same amount of success as opposed to if you paid to play per se?
No.
And why is that, Jose? Because, everybody has a social media, but I'm from Nebraska. I don't know if these companies are using these marketing campaigns as well. Are these companies using marketing campaigns as well, where they're putting a lot of money into campaigning and pushing their product out there?
The viral effect of organic content nowadays is so minimal and so unimpactful, because you have large enterprises such as Amazon spending $46 million a day on paid marketing campaigns.
Exactly.
Thank you, Austin, for the actual numerical breakdown. Mm-hmm. You really think that you, as an individual from a small town, a small state, whatever it might be, a small city, can compete with $0 against $46 million?
And just to dig into that a little bit here. So $46 million per day on marketing. Per day. Not a year. Per day. So assuming it costs that person $20 to reach 1,000 people, right? That means that he reaches, or Amazon, Jeff Bezos, reaches 2.3 billion impressions per day. 2.3 billion, right? So say that you have a social media following of 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm. Which is a lot.
Yeah, which is a lot.
Especially if you come from a small town, small place.
Exactly.
And mind you, though, the quality of the people, those 1,000 people, you might know the majority of them.
Right. Which means, is even better.
But they might not buy shit from you because they're just buddy.
Right. So you're trying to push your product out to 1,000 people, right? And out of those 1,000 people, let's just be generous here. Let's just say 100 people actually say, hey, yeah, I'll buy your product.
Right.
It's probably going to be less than that.
Right.
So 100 people say, I'm going to buy your product. Or 100 people even look at your product and say, here's a chance I might look at it. Because not all the 1,000 of your followers are going to see it. So let's just say 100 of your followers see it, right? Jeff Bezos, compared to your 100, has 2.3 billion impressions per day. So say that you're a door-to-door salesman, right? In order for a door-to-door salesman to reach this, he or she would have to put in 94 million hours of work per day.
I don't know about you, but I don't think I have 94 million hours.
There's not enough hours in the day. Not even close.
Don't think it exists.
Not even close.
Not in my world, at least. Some people might think otherwise.
Right. So if you have your product and you have your business going, right, and you think that you can just organically grow your product, odds are it's not going to happen because you have these big companies like this that are putting millions of dollars into whatever it is that they're doing. But let's not even say big, large companies that have just millions and billions of dollars of funding. Let's just say, for example, I don't know, Jose and Austin. We have a business and we're putting in X amount of dollars per day into marketing campaigns, which we have done for an extended period of time. And you think that you can just grow something organically while we're putting money into this. We're putting money into the social media platform that you're using as opposed to you who's just using it for free and trying to get things organically. Which one do you think the social media person or just the app in general is going to push? Are they going to push the person who's trying to do it organically and just push the information out to their followers and say, hey, yeah, share my stuff, please, blah, blah, blah? Or are they going to push the person that's saying, hey, yeah, I'm going to put in, let's just say, $1,000 into this a month? Even though that's not a lot, they're putting in more money into this than you, who's putting in zero. So the app is going to say, hey, look, $1,000 per month over zero, I'm pushing his stuff or her stuff. So,
well, and the biggest thing that comes from that is we live in a data-oriented society. And not only are the algorithms based on data, but also so are your data-driven decision-making processes within your business. So that individual who is trying to approach a business endeavor or whatever in an organic manner, although you can say pridefully, I succeeded doing it this way, your rate at which you receive this data, the rate at which you can make these decisions, your rate at which you can adapt your approach is substantially stifled in comparison to the person who's just throwing money at it. Mm-hmm. Because essentially what you're doing is you're paying for data. And there's two ways to measure the data: the breadth of the data set and the depth of the data set. And the reason I mention this is because one of the problems that we had early on with our ad spend was we weren't spending enough to get a breadth of data. So we were building a small niche audience and then going deep into the audience. However, the depth was good, but the audience wasn't great. And so we were spending more money in an inefficient manner. While as the approach that we took that resulted in a greater level of success was throwing more money in the breadth area and gaining a greater audience and an understanding of where our niche was. And once we hit it, bam, we throw money into depth.
So that's like going from your local fishing pond and trying to catch some fish as opposed to going to a lake and trying to catch some fish.
Right.
Very large difference. You only have so many access to fish in this small little pond. Over here in this lake, though, crazy amount. So, that's what we have. But now that we're talking about, business a little bit, I want to talk about this because we also have been through this as well. So paying to play also means paying for performance. And you know how you pay for performance as well? You hire people. Because after a certain point of time, it becomes kind of tedious and monotonous, too much so to where you're the person working on everything while also trying to steer the ship at the same time. It's hard for you to steer the boat while also taking care of the shit that's happening in the fucking lower depths of the ship where a pipe busted, and you're going to have to do both. You're going to have to fix the pipe, and then you're also going to have to drive the boat. So when you hire people, you have people that can take over that for you. However, that costs. You have to pay to have them work on things. However, can you talk a little bit about, and we've talked about this in a previous podcast, but can you expound a little bit on the importance of hiring and hiring the right people and being okay with having to pay people to do a job? Because for you, in our recent hire, how important was this recent hire for you specifically?
And historically, this is something that I struggled with and that you actually, as the Scrum Master, mentored and lectured me through on the power of delegation. And using the current example, finding an individual who fits into your current ecosystem and culture, is adaptable, is that you can reward according to their value and their worth. All of these things are extremely difficult to do. However, when you do it right and when you are patient enough, it literally is buying your time back. And I don't mean buying your time that you've already lost or spent. I mean the time that you have coming in the future. You're paying to get that time back, which allows us to focus on the high level decisions.
Right.
It allows us to work on the business or work on the podcast rather than be in the business, in the weeds, in the podcast, which means the progression of the ship is better. We're not focused on maintaining the hull. We're focused on sailing the ship,
right?
Which for us is the focus and the priority, because if we don't do it, nobody else is, because we're the captains. So that is one of the main outcomes that we've currently had. And I'll give you an example is now I have approximately 20 more hours a week to go about business or life or whatever it might be. It could be sleep, it could be exercise, it could be business related, it could be reading. I can use that time for other necessary things that are required for us to expand just because of proper delegation, selection, and training.
Right.
Now, I heard an analogy the other day about the Marines. And, well, it wasn't an analogy, it was a reference. The Marines say you can only lead a group of 8.
Right. I've heard that.
And the reason they say that is because as you grow, as you get bigger teams, your capacity to handle all of the problems goes down substantially.
Right.
Because you cannot spearhead on all fronts.
It's too chaotic.
And you might be an individual who is exceptional and phenomenal, and you may be able to handle it. But for the average individual, 8 people is the team that is already reaching a borderline, which is a reason why you need to find people who you can rely on, people who can work next to you or under you or even above you, who do tasks that you are incapable of or that you understand that other people can do them better than you and you can delegate them. Now, the other day we were talking about this. We were talking about the rates of hiring and why, as a company goes along, you have to continue hiring and hiring and hiring, even if you don't need to fill positions. Could you talk about the reason why that is a habit and a trend that I think our viewership should be prepared for eventually when their business grows?
Okay, so if you're continuously hiring as opposed to, say you're not hiring enough. Let's just start with that. You're not hiring enough. You have things that arise randomly that you're like, wow, dang, I just got more shipments than what I thought coming in, or more people clicked order than what I expected or whatnot. Wait, Bill's not working anymore? Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't have Bill. He left. Sally, I fired Sally. Now I just have John and myself. I have to do, oh, man, we're too short staffed. We're not going to be able to do it. Then you aren't able to complete all of your orders. You're not able to complete all the things that you need to complete. And then not only do you miss out on money, but you also miss out, or you lose credibility, and then people will not want to return to you. If you're too understaffed, you encounter problems like that, because there might be a sudden uptick in work or a sudden uptick in progress where you're going to have to rely on more people, and you'd rather have more people, you'd rather have more staff than too little staff because of that reason. So if you have more staff on hand, it allows you to be more flexible and more adaptable when things arise, a higher uptake in volume arises, and you can handle these things. And it also kind of helps with training as well, because if you have more people on staff and you ingratiate them in the culture and the system of how things work, when someone leaves, again, you have a backfill that knows how to do things properly because you've taught them the system. And then you also are able to have people that know the system well enough to where you've taught it to them. Now they know the system well enough and they've been through enough things to where if somebody does come on the team or whatnot, they can also teach them how to do things as well, as opposed to you having to do it, and that's slowing down progress as well. So those are some of the benefits of just having more people on staff as opposed to having less people on staff. You always would rather overhire than underhire, because you underhiring can get you into some pretty messy situations.
What about anticipating bad apples?
That as well, because that's something that I feel like a lot of companies encounter, because you may have the perfect candidate on paper. They might interview well, because in today's society, we have some pretty good bullshitters, right? So they might do all that well. They get on the job and then they become lazy, don't do the work as well as you thought. And then even if you do try to train them, which takes time out of your day to do that, they may not catch on as fast. So if you have a bad apple, one bad apple can spoil, the whole, what's the term?
I guess the whole lot.
Let's just say the whole lot, right? And if you have minimal staff in general, that one bad apple can hurt things a lot more significantly as opposed to if you had a larger staff. Because if you had a team of 3 people and you had all the trust in the world in this person to come onto your team and do this one particular thing well, and then they fuck it up, they're just terrible at it, you have no way to backfill them, they suck at their job, and that just slows down the entire process of your business. That slows down the step in the assembly line that they were supposed to do, which later in slows down all the rest of the steps after in the assembly line. So that is kind of the negative effects of having a bad apple. And if you have too many or too little people on staff, that bad apple's effects is a lot more kind of, pronounced, and also just kind of negative on your overall business.
And that's why you always need to have a spare or a fail safe, so that, because it's kind of unavoidable early on, but when you become such a large enterprise, you have the capacity and you have all the reason to always have a spare or the ability to expand or grow on demand. Because that's one of the things that good leaderships and good cultures have, is that you have multiple Swiss Army knives and you have individuals who are both willing and able to step in and help and assist in certain situations. And that starts from the top down, right? Will leadership dirty their hands and roll up their sleeves to get down into the dirty work and do what needs to get done? Is that the culture that you're instilling in your employees, in your whoever it could be, even in your contractors, that, hey, when you walk into this office, when you walk into this room, when you're working under this name, this is how we behave. This is how we conduct ourselves. This is how we carry ourselves.
So in order to kind of solidify that company culture, I think something that we've learned throughout the process of business and growing a business and starting one in general is that initially you might have to put some money into something that is not going to automatically pay you back. You might say, hey, look, here is something that I spent hundreds of dollars on. You have it for free. Why the fuck would I do that? I'm just spending and giving away money at that point.
I deserve to be paid for this.
Exactly.
And rewarded.
Right.
Ooh.
But you know why you do that?
Why?
You have to pay your dues. Now, Jose, can you please tell the people a little bit about paying your dues and how important that is and how many times that we've had to pay our dues willingly, and sometimes we may have seen the fruits of our labor when it came to that, and sometimes maybe not. But just the importance of paying your dues whenever you get into this, and knowing that it's not something that you should try to avoid. You have to go through and pay your dues. How important are paying your dues?
And this is something that I got at least from Bedros Keuilian. Shout out to Bedros Keuilian and the Bedros Keuilian Show.
Yes.
Paying your dues can be time, money, effort, resources. It can be anything, and it is likely everything. It's so important to pay your dues because everybody has to do it, and everybody who gets anywhere will do it.
Right.
An example of paying our dues without going into much details was yesterday. $300, we'll say, maybe 7 to 10 hours worth of time cumulative. And what was the payout? But what did we gain?
Access to a larger network and a potential business partner.
And you might say 10 hours, $300, I don't see the return. Or you might say that's not a lot. For us currently, that is a lot. 10 hours of our time and $300 out of our personal pockets, well, the business account, is a lot of money without saying, hey, here's a direct dollar amount. I spent $300 and I made $3,000. We can't say that. The potential is higher than that. However, the immediate result is not there. That is paying your dues. I would argue that paying your dues is putting in effort to something that you can't directly see.
Right.
Paying your dues can be fasting for an extended period of time, even though you can't see your six pack, you know it's there.
Right.
And you just have to believe that it's going to be there. Paying your dues can be podcasting and posting over 390 pieces of content and not yet hitting 1K and saying, oh, we'll get there. That's paying your dues. It's learning and it's evolving through the process. It's just going and going and going and going.
Exactly. And again, even if people believe in what we're doing or not, even if people say that we're going to work with you right away or not, we're putting in the time, we're putting in the hours. So whenever it does happen, people are going to know, man, Austin, Jose, those are the guys that were busting their ass and talking to us and doing things for us for free and all that shit. They were going around town, helping people where they could, all that stuff.
They were everywhere.
We were paying our dues. We were putting in the work. So again, even if the shit doesn't work out right away, whenever the shit does turn out to work, you already have submitted yourself in the city or wherever you are by paying your dues to the people and by paying your dues to the city, by putting in that work, by doing things pro bono, by just helping other people. So for us, paying our dues is really monumental because not only does it show others that we are who we say we are, it also builds our character because it's easy to do something when you get a instant return. It's easy to do something when you get money just like that from it. It's easy that way. But if you're doing something consistently from the start, which is how most businesses are going to start out for everybody, well, let's say 99% of people who just don't have the money that somebody might have pumped into it or whatever, you're going to have to spend a lot of time to where you may not see a direct result. However, you're paying your dues and you're building that character. Building that character within yourself is something that is so important because you have built up a stronger foundation for yourself. We are paying our dues not only to help other people, but to build ourselves up and build a person who is, or a structure who can't be taken down, who can stand the test of weather, who can stand the test of earthquakes, all that shit. So paying your dues is something that I feel like you must do. So you have to pay money for shit. You have to pay in time. You have to pay in mental bandwidth. You have to pay your dues. And you know, this is another great example that I think you have here is also paying your dues when we're talking about fitness as well. So do you want to go into this a little bit more, Jose?
Hang on. I need the actual Xing 02.
Ooh.
So well known for his frequent collaborations in the late new jabs in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
He is a small rap artist who does chill hop, lo-fi, hip hop vibes and music. We call it new jazz.
Yeah.
So Xing 02 has a quote in one of his songs: "Extra carbs and proteins you ought to burn to build." That is just popped in my head right now when you were talking about paying your dues. You have to burn. You have to burn cash. You have to burn time. You have to burn connections in a positive way. You have to burn your free time. You have to burn fat. You have to burn carbs and proteins, all to build, because you are building. You're building that fire. You're building that momentum. You're building that network. You're building the potential. And it all gets released at one point in time, and boom, you're at the next level. And then you're starting again.
It's so funny how there's so many parallels to fitness, business, and to real life. When you see in real life, you have to, you can talk to this more than I can because you have the scientific background, but you have to sometimes burn a field or whatnot to kind of revitalize the soil, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then it allows for more growth as opposed to just having the kind of semi-dead or not very prosperous soil and crops there.
Well, let's take it a step further. In order to build protein, you have to burn energy. You have to break down the amino acids in a protein, which is an active process. Your body has to expend energy in breaking down the protein that you eat and then spend energy to rebuild that protein. So imagine Legos, right? I give you a Lego house and I tell you, build me a skyscraper. Well, in order to build a skyscraper, what do you have to do?
You have to get the blocks.
Correct. So you have to spend energy to take apart the house, and then you have to spend energy again to build it into a skyscraper.
Right.
So in everything, you're burning energy. You're burning commodities. You're burning. You got to burn to build.
And you have to pay to play. So on that note, Jose, I think we've given a great podcast. Again, man, thank you all the subscribers. This has been a wonderful journey through 2023. Now we're in 2024. We're looking to way more fun, way more knowledge, and just way more AM podcasts. Wow.
And I leave y'all with a quote from Benny the Butcher.
What we got?
Last year was about Brandon, and this year's about expanding.
Boom, 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 boom.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
The AM Club Podcast. Signing out.
Mic check. The AM Club Podcast.